All right, well, welcome everyone. I am so glad to be here to talk about posture and Parkinson's, and to hopefully give you all a couple strategies on how you can work on standing taller with PD. So just a little bit about me, if you've never met me. I've been a PT for over a decade and have really been focused in Parkinson's care for the last 10 years. About a year ago, I started my own practice, Engage, and I'm LSVT Big certified and Power certified, so two of the main Parkinson's therapy programs out there. I have participated in research studies at Upstate and Syracuse University and teach in the physical therapy education program. And a lot of my moving big people are here. So I teach moving big and brain and balance and the walking pole class for Empower. So our objectives today, to talk about posture changes related to Parkinson's and how those changes can impact your overall mobility and what you can do, to help yourself and get yourself standing taller. So the picture is of a gentleman who is pretty stooped. It is the classic historic picture of someone with Parkinson's. It was drawn in 1886. And when we think about, Parkinson's, we think about that stooped, rounded shoulder posture, not much of a low back curve, and, forward leaning. Individuals with Parkinson's are twice as likely to develop this stoop posture compared to general older adult population. And so this is one thing that we really want to try to stay on top of and improve. So there are quite a few reasons why this can happen. So I'll talk through some of the primary. So with Parkinson's, there is a shift from mobility and your everyday activities, like your posture, going from being an automatic task where you don't even have to think about it to having to put some more conscious effort into it. And that's because Parkinson's affects the part of your brain that really is in charge of automatic activities. Sorry. Pat, did you let that person in?
Yes, got it. Sorry.
Without those automatic reminders from your brain to stand tall, that's one reason why you can slowly shift into a more forward flexed posture. And when you do stand tall with Parkinson's, you're using a lot more of those conscious pathways. Another reason why this can happen is when you're doing two things at once. So if you're concentrating on one activity, you may notice that your posture becomes more forward or more forward flexed. If you think about like walking down the street and talking and carrying on a conversation, you may notice as you're getting going with your walking that you become more forward flexed. Another great example for right now is if you're sitting at your computer. If you're really concentrating on what you are focused on, that over time you may find that you're more forward flexed unless you have built in more conscious strategies for that. And then walking and carrying a cup of coffee because you're really focusing on not spilling that cup of coffee. Another reason is rigidity. So that muscle stiffness that's so often connected with Parkinson's. With Parkinson's, typically one side of the body, at least initially, is more impacted than another. And that can that can actually be a reason why there can be a sideways lean. is you can either lean in towards that side where things are a little bit tighter, or it can actually be a compensatory strategy where you move away from the side that is really tight. Back stiffness, which is really common in Parkinson's, can lead you to be more initiating movements from your head and your chest rather than your hips. You may notice issues with your posture, especially related to rigidity during more off times of your medication. And then if you've been in positions for a long time, just like with anyone, you can get stiff and then it's harder to stand taller. And then another main reason is how your brain processes proprioception, or how your brain perceives how you're moving in space. So proprioception is a perception of your body movement and body position. With Parkinson's, there can be this big mismatch of how you're perceiving your movements. You perceive that you're moving, or standing tall or moving big, but the movement outcome is less. It's the whole foundation of the LSVT Big program. And if you've worked with me at all, one of my go-tos is that we just need to be moving big. And it's because of this mismatch of how your brain is perceiving you're moving and then how you're actually moving. And your body's perception enables us to figure out how we're moving in space and how we're orientated in space, especially in a vertical position. And there's some thought that this mismatch that happens in Parkinson's can actually impact how you perceive upright. And so it can be a couple degrees, either to the right or to the left, in forward or back, well, typically forward. So there's just this mismatch of information. And then there can also be changes in your visual perception. So this, along with that proprioceptive input, there can be a visual perceptual shift where you're feeling yourself in terms of upright is either shifted to the right or to the left, or forward leaning. So there really isn't just one reason why individuals with Parkinson's become more forward flexed. And I hope that you're able to see that. So our approaches are really going to include quite a few different strategies. So how can poor posture impact you? So there's a lot of ways that it can impact your everyday life. It can cause difficulty with speaking clearly and speaking loudly. You can have difficulty moving your neck and your arms. So if you're more forward flexed, reaching above head to try to get a glass up at a shelf can be challenging. Again, changes with your perception of your body and space, which can lead to issues with balance and falls, especially because your body weight is tending to be more forward. Over time, it can lead to decrease in strength in your postural muscles because of your head position being more forward. You can have a tendency to have headaches or TMJ, jaw pain, because of the alignment of your neck. There can be some issues with swallowing because you're more forward and your rib cage is over your pelvis more. It's harder to take those big breaths. And then it can be difficult to do functional activities like getting in and out of bed, stand up from a chair, because it's harder to get that full body extension. So a research study that was published in 2019 in the Journal of Physical Therapy found that with greater disease severity, so as people had Parkinson's for longer, where they had more rigidity at their trunk and decreased spinal proprioception. So they didn't have a really clear picture of how their posture was, and postural fatigue were all significant indicators for a more forward flexed posture. And that there was this significant association between that greater forward flexed posture and decreased ability to do reaching activities, which makes sense. So if you, and we can all do this sitting right here. So I want us to sit as tall as you can. So really grow tall through your spine. And I want you to reach up like you're trying to reach for a glass, on a top shelf. Okay, and then bring your arm down. All right, now I want us to sink down into our posture. So thinking like our ribs to our pelvis. All right, so now I want you to do that same reach. Are you able to reach as far? I wasn't. There's a significant decrease between when I'm sitting up nice and tall to then when I'm sinking way down and having to do that same reach. And what the researchers also found is that there was a decrease in respiratory function. So being able to take that big breath, which is, so important for all of us. If I always say, like, if you don't breathe, you can't move. And what the researchers found was that therapy that really targeted on spinal proprioception. So building awareness of how you're moving and helping with that mismatch of how your body is perceiving you're moving and then how you're actually moving. And improving postural awareness are two key things to helping someone with Parkinson's in their posture. And then another study looked at a 4-week program that was really trunk specific exercises to help people with Parkinson's in their posture. And so they looked at 2 different exercise regimens and therapy regimens. One was a more traditional, what you think of as physical therapy. So joint mobilization, so manual therapy, doing, basic muscle strengthening and stretching, and then doing some walking and balance activities. And then what they looked at is another type of therapy that really incorporated work on visual and proprioception feedback. So one of the reasons why people can become more forward is their visual perception is off. So they could feel that upright is actually a couple degrees off from true upright. And the same for proprioception, that mismatch of information. And that was performed along with stabilization exercises for the trunk. So engaging those postural muscles and then performing functional tasks. So not only working on this mismatch of information and then strengthening, carrying that over to a functional activity. And what they found was that set of therapy had a significant improvement in individuals' posture and balance compared to traditional physical therapy. And what I thought was great was these exercises were performed 5 days a week for 4 weeks. So this was just a 4-week program that people really saw significant improvements in their balance and their posture. So this isn't in your slides. I just added it this morning because I was going through things and I thought, when you come to physical therapy, there are some things that we all take a look at that are really helpful for us to understand why you may have some of the postural changes you have. So the first one is perception of upright. So we will take a look at how you're perceiving upright and if that is off from true upright. And there are exercises that we can do to help with that. Taking a look at your muscles that are tight, and then also taking a look at your posture in different positions. Does your posture change significantly from when you're standing to, say, when you're laying down completely flat? With some posture changes that can happen in Parkinson's, that can be the case where when you're standing completely tall, you can be much more forward flexed. And then when you go to a lying down position, you could be completely flat. And that really speaks to the perception of upright in someone with Parkinson's. We will also take a look at posture when you're multitasking. So doing two things at once. I love to do this in our exercise class where we'll work on walking or standing tall or, doing some type of specific movement. And then like today in class, the students had participants naming movies and TV shows. So being able to do those two things at once, but also maintaining your awareness of how you're moving. And then, of course, taking a look at muscle strength and then your standing balance. All right, so let's see some inspiration. So this is a gentleman who I am working with, and the picture was taken on the 1st of February. Pretty forward flexed, and just after 2 PT sessions and then giving some posture homework, on the 10th, we did a before and after, and you can see that he's standing up much taller. His awareness of being upright is much better. And this is one of my really favorite go-tos to take a look at posture, specifically in Parkinson's, is we can take a picture of it and you can just see from the picture that that's a significant improvement. Another great assessment that we can do is actually measuring the distance when someone comes to the wall, from the wall to the back of your head. So you're doing this at home and you are interested in improving your posture. That is an objective way to be able to monitor your improvements, is when you come to the wall and you're standing there, you have someone at home, they can measure the distance from the wall to the back of your head. And as your posture gets better, that distance should get smaller and smaller. So how can we help to correct your posture? We can work on stretching. So really common areas that are important to focus stretching is basically the front part of your chest and neck and upper back. So your pec muscles, the front of your chest, your iliopsoas, the front part of your hip, the hamstrings in your calf, because when those get tight, you get more bent in your knees. And then strengthening, you're really going to focus on your back muscles. So your glutes. I always joke about buns of steel. We're working on buns of steel, but buns of steel are going to help you stand tall. Your erector spinae, which are the muscles that are along the side of your spine and your back. Your scapular retractors, so the muscles that are in between your shoulder blades that help bring your shoulder blades together. And then your cervical extensors, so the muscles that help keep your head basically on top of your shoulders and from falling over forward. So a great strategy that you can be doing to work on standing tall is using a mirror to check your posture throughout the day. and you can do it both from the front and from the side view. So a great time to do this is if you have a mirror in your bathroom. Is anytime you go to the bathroom, just check yourself out in the mirror. And then trying to be more aware of your posture changes. So trying to catch yourself if you're starting to, stoop forward or lean. If it works with your family dynamics at home, asking someone to let you know when you're noticing or when they're noticing you're stooping. I have to say that not all family relationships are built for that kind of reminders, but that can sometimes be helpful. And then another big one is changing your position often and taking movement breaks. So if you're sitting for a long time, you're going to end up sinking down into that more forward flex posture. So if you're watching TV, use a commercial break. If the commercial is on, take a movement break. Do some stand-ups and sit-downs. Walk around the room. Do, one of the exercises I'm going to show you today. Just try to get your body moving and reminded about standing tall or being more upright. Yoga or Tai Chi classes are really great. Also my balance class on Tuesdays. And then, if this is something that you'd like personal one-on-one help with, going to see a physical therapist, especially one who focuses in Parkinson's. And then I'm going to go through some simple posture exercises and stretches that you can do throughout your day. So why don't we, does anyone have any questions right now? If you do, you can unmute yourself.
I have a question.
Yeah,
How you doing, Liz?
Bernadette.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too. What's your question?
My question is, I'm in that category where I stoop almost all the time, and that help. It's helping me fall with my balance because forward, and I also have a tendency to lift to the right. I'm sure you remember that.
I do.
And I really need some guidance on how to get out of that.
Yeah, so we'll go over some exercises today to help get you more upright. If you are dealing with a more significant forward or side bending posture, it can be helpful to see a physical therapist one-on-one, because typically, just in my professional experience, that there is usually a perceptual component to it, either visual perception, how you're perceiving upright, or how your body is perceiving its movements in terms of it thinks that it's moving big enough to keep you up tall, and it's only maybe doing 70% of what it needs to do. So we'll definitely go over some things today. But I think when you're dealing with more side bending or more significant forward flex, that it's really helpful to get some one-on-one assistance with that. Because like at the beginning, so many times people think that it's just either a weakness or a stretching issue. And one of my big take homes from this that I hope you will leave the presentation with is that there are quite a few different components to why a more forward flex posture happens. But there are things that we can do to help. And it's not, and sometimes it's more than just doing, daily stretches. Okay, does anyone else have any other questions before we jump into some exercises?
Yeah, Liz.
Here.
Yeah.
Hello? Yeah, it's I'm up here. My name is Ralph Vitello. I know some of the people here. I've noticed that my posture in the morning and early afternoon is good. As I go through the day, it gets worse. By the end of the day, I'm bent over. I have difficulty walking. Uh, I don't know if part of that is just fatigue or if part of it is the medication. My medication doesn't work as well, and at times doesn't work at all in the late afternoon, or sometimes even in the late morning. But like I said, I don't know if it's a combination of medication and just fatigue or just fatigue or medication. But it certainly affects my ability to walk, and it's been a real problem for me in my posture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Ralph, it can definitely be both of those or a combination. So as you're heading into more of your off time with medication, it's harder for your brain to be able to shift between different activities, and also it just your brain has a harder time really maximizing any of its automatic signaling,
Right.
like posture. And so that really then has to shift into a more conscious conscious awareness. And so that's good that you've noticed that being a pattern. And fatigue can also definitely play a role. So, if you took a little break, a rest break, and then got up and got moving again, sometimes that's a helpful strategy.
Right.
For some people, they may not need something like a walking pole. And I love walking poles. They may not need it earlier in the day, but say as they're coming to an off time of their medicine, or they're getting to a point in the day where they're more fatigued, using something like a walking pole for some people can be beneficial because it gives more input to be standing up taller, and it actually can activate your arms and your core a little bit more just because of that downward force.
Yeah, I regularly carry a cane now. Again, earlier in the day, the mornings, I don't need it. But I always have it with me. And again, later in the day, as my posture starts to deteriorate, I use it more and more. So again, if I could just, again, in my own mind, I'm saying to myself, if I could just stand up straight, I'd be able to walk a lot better.
So Ralph, and by no means am I'm providing you specific recommendations. But one thing that you could think about is trying a walking pole. So I love walking poles because they change where your hand is positioned compared to say a walker or a cane, where your force is going straight down,
Right.
which then makes you more forward flexed. That's just the biomechanics of a cane or a walker. Whereas a walking stick or a walking pole, your elbow is bent at that 90-degree angle. And yes, you're having a downward force, but because your wrist and hand position is not going straight down to the ground, it actually can help facilitate you standing up a little bit taller.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I have used those. I didn't bring them down to Florida with me, but they're fairly inexpensive. 20 bucks will get you a good one. So.
Yeah, just something to think about.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions before we go into some exercises?
Yes, can you let me in, Pat?
You're in. You're on.
This is Miller with Barber by the Side. My problem is the opposite of the previous person. I'm very stooped when I get up in the morning and shuffle my feet. And around 11 or so, I perk up a lot and I can move better. And I'm wondering how that plays with what you have to offer.
So that's a lot of times is you can work on that with the timing of when you're doing your exercises. And that could also be medication related. So when you're getting up in the morning, for some people with Parkinson's, because overnight is the longest time during the day that you're going between doses, the morning can sometimes be a little bit tougher to get up and get going. A strategy that you could try is doing some of these exercises in the morning before you're really asking your body to get up and moving, to get warmed up.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. I know that a lot of people with Parkinson's find that mornings can be a little bit challenging. You may be dealing with more stiffness, and your body may take a little bit to get going. But I also find that is a really great time to work on your exercises. And that's one reason why I love my class being at 9 a.m. Is because then, you really are working on getting your body moving bigger, and we get your brain and your body revved up. So that way you're better able to conquer the day. So sometimes it's just tweaking and playing around with when you're focusing on your movement. These are great questions. Anyone else have any other questions before we jump into some exercises?
I have 2 questions. This is Barbara, I'm Miller's wife.
Okay, Barbara, hi.
Hi. One of my questions is, when you, earlier on, you were talking about the effect that it has on one's throat and swallowing and so forth. Have they found any direct connections between posture and sleep apnea? I mean, I know it has to do with your throat and where the muscles fall back, but it seems like what you're saying about when you're lying down, sometimes you're actually straighter than when you're standing up.
Yeah, so Barbara, for certain subconditions of Parkinson's, that can be the case. For other individuals that may have more rigidity, you could lie down and you're still dealing with some stiffness and not getting completely flat. So there's different, so even within Parkinson's, there's some subcategories for posture. When I was doing a research review of just what's come out in the last couple of years, I did not come across anything regarding posture and sleep apnea. But I will circle back to it, and if I come across anything, I'm sure Pat can help us get connected.
Okay, thank you. And I do have one other question.
Sure.
You showed, I don't know if it was connected with the great pictures that you showed of the man who had done some exercises and improved his, one of your people that you work with. But I wrote down somewhere that somebody did exercises 5 times a week for 4 weeks. I think that was him.
No, that was a specific research study. So they looked at traditional physical therapy, what we think of, as traditional physical therapy, and then physical therapy that was more focused on visual perception, sensory perception of how we're moving, and then strengthening. And then they followed that up with functional activities. So, different than what we think of as your traditional going to physical therapy, twice a week for 8 weeks, where you go and lay down on a table and do some strengthening exercises.
Well, my question was, if you do that for 4 weeks and you get this improvement, how long does that last? I mean, do you do those exercises forever, 5 times a week? I mean, 4 weeks seems like nothing. So how long does it last, I guess?
So Barbara, when it comes to finding this right combination for someone with Parkinson's, and this can be for posture, it can be for balance, it can be for really specific movements like getting in and out of bed. Once we find that specific exercise, exercise is medicine for Parkinson's.
Sure.
You wouldn't skip your Parkinson's medication dose, hopefully not, because you're feeling better. The same thing for exercise.
Gotcha.
And so if you an established exercise program really helped improve posture, that is going to be something that you want to continue with. And you may modify it. You may modify the intensity or frequency of how often you're doing it, but typically that's going to be something you want to continue with for forever.
Okay. That makes me think of another question. I'm sorry, I don't mean to
Oh.
take your time, but sometimes I really nag Miller about posture. I'll say, stand up straight. And he's pretty good with that, but it seems almost immediately that his posture goes back to being kind of stooped over. And I always think it's a motivation problem. Why doesn't he just motivate to do this? Because, sometimes I say, you're going to look like a comma by the time you're done. And that I know motivation is a problem with people who have Parkinson's. And I'm just wondering if I think that maybe the successes would help maintain motivation to keep doing it. That's part of why I asked, like, is 4 weeks going to last or not? But if you have 4 weeks of success, for example, does that help keep people motivated to do it? In your studies, have you found out anything about maintaining motivation as well as an exercise regimen?
So there has not, to my knowledge, been any specific studies looking at long-term adherence.
Yeah.
But what I can speak to is the LSVT big program, because that does follow a specific protocol that's 4 weeks long, 4 times a week for 4 weeks. And I find that people get better with that program and are doing great. But unless we really hook someone in then to a community exercise program, or if someone doesn't have that available to them, where we really have carved out, like, you did this hour with me 4 days a week, you're not going to fill that hour with anything else. Like, this is what you're doing. Your body needs this exercise to help you stay moving bigger and better. And so I think it's definitely a multifactorial issue that happens in Parkinson's. This is one reason why we are so lucky to have Empower, because when someone finishes with me, and actually before they finish with me, I have gotten them to meet Pat, and they've started to transition into a community exercise group, because I want that buy-in and I want that transition to be as seamless as possible, so that they don't fall off the wagon. Specifically for the posture issue, I think, as long as the dynamics works, that you're getting that reminder, I think that's wonderful. And for posture, I don't think it's so much a motivation issue. It is really that when you give that reminder, it is bringing conscious awareness of posture. And then as soon as that reminder is gone and he's fixed his posture, it then, without Parkinson's, it would be that automatic, okay, I need to keep this. In Parkinson's, where that automatic response is either significantly delayed or just really challenging, if they're doing something else to access, that's where you're going to see that stooped posture come back. So it's actually a brain signaling issue.
Thank you.
Yeah, those are really great questions. I am going to have us jump into doing some of the exercises, and then we can go over any other questions you all have. All right, so the first exercise is a chin tuck. And so you're going to work on sitting or standing tall. And the goal of this exercise is to decrease that forward head position that can happen in Parkinson's. So I call this the double chin exercise. Especially the women out there, no one likes to have a double chin, but it gets that exercise exactly how you need it to be. So basically what you're going to do is tuck your chin like you're making a double chin. And especially in Parkinson's, you may find that then you're looking down at the floor. We don't want to be looking down at the floor. I want you to lift your head up. And you're going to hold that for a couple seconds and then relax. And when you relax, I don't want you to relax back to your really forward head position. I call that your turtle head position. Okay, so think that we work on getting your chin back. So your chin is over your shoulders. You're going to hold that for a couple seconds and then just relax. Another great place to do this is if you have, say, a chair that has a higher back, because that gives you some input to the back of your head. Or you can even do this up against a wall or laying flat on the floor. And this is a great exercise to help get your head just over your shoulders. So if you wanted just to practice a couple of those, so bringing your chin back, making that double chin, as you're doing that, checking in, are you looking down at the floor or are you looking straight ahead? And then when you relax, try not to let your head relax all the way forward, that you're just relaxing that tension in your neck muscles. So that's a great one that you can do throughout the day. The next is scapular retraction or shoulder blade squeeze. So sitting here, this is to work on decreasing some of that rounded shoulder posture. So you're going to work on sitting up as straight as you can. You're going to bend your elbows at your side and you're going to pull your elbows back. And I always give the reminder like you're squeezing a penny between your shoulder blades. And then you relax. And again, when you relax, you're not relaxing all the way into your forward posture. You squeeze and then just relax that muscle tension. And then squeeze and relax. And this is one that you can do, 10 or 20 repetitions. You can do it sitting, you can do it standing, really wherever it fits into your day. And it's just to help open up your shoulders. Another exercise that you can do, and this is one of my favorites, is if you have, say, a kitchen chair or a desk chair that has a support that just goes to the middle part of your back, is working on hinging over your chair. So what you'll do is bring your hands to your head, and then you'll come to the back of your chair, and then you'll lean back up and over the chair. And what that does is that helps just use the chair to help pivot your back to help get some more extension through your spine. You can play around with the spine level that you're at. So you can scoot your hips back in the chair and do it, or you can scoot your hips forward in the chair and do it to work on getting higher parts of your back and then lower parts of your back. If this feels really comfortable, you can find that position and then just hang out there for a couple big breaths. So as you're there, working on a big breath and trying to fill the lower parts of your lungs, because that'll also help get you a little bit more extended. And you could play around with, different chairs. So sometimes like I'm in a computer chair. This is not the best chair for this. So a hardback kitchen chair is a great one for this. Okay. All right. Pasture check-ins. I love pasture check-ins. So this is something that you can do. Like if you are a couple times during the day, is just come to a wall and you're going to have your feet about 6 inches away from the wall, and you're going to try to get your tush, your upper back, and your head up against the wall. So thinking back to that picture of the gentleman who I was working with and how we were working on upright posture. So he came to the wall and our goal was to get his tush, his upper back, and his head all up against the wall. So feet are about 6 inches away and working on doing that shin tuck. So bringing your head over your shoulders. And then you can bring your arms out to the side, opening up your hands to help open up your shoulders. And I like this because this is something that's quick and easy. So you could spend, 10 seconds, 30 seconds at the wall. Just check in to see where you're at, working on a couple big breaths, and then you're off to get back to whatever you were doing. But it helps build in that more conscious awareness and a conscious reminder of your posture. And then this is a shoulder stretch you can do. So if you're at the wall for your posture check-in, you're basically going to have that same setup. So you're going to come to the wall, tush, upper back, and head are aimed up at the wall. You're going to bring your arms out to the side like a goalpost. And then you could be hanging out here. So a lot of times if you have really tight pec muscles, that may be where you're at. Working on some big breaths. If you're able to, you can work on keeping that posture and then sliding your arms up against the wall and then bringing them back down. So sliding up and then back down. Because one of the big things that can happen with that forward flex posture is it makes it a lot harder to do reaching activities with your arms. So this I find is a really helpful go-to exercise because not only you're getting that posture feedback, you're also working on that posture and upright posture and then an arm movement. One more, and this is why I gave Pat all of the slides because there are pictures and then there's descriptions. So hopefully if you're able to, this is a go-to resource for you. The last posture exercise, this is my absolute favorite, is a shoulder reset. So often we end up in a more forward rounded posture. For this, what you're going to do is bring your shoulders up towards your ears. You're going to turn your palms so they face forward. You're going to just relax your shoulders down and then relax your hands. So hopefully you were able to feel that you maybe shifted from being more forward to your shoulders being back and down a little bit. We'll do that one more time. So shoulders can come up to your ear. Turn your hands out. You can even do a big hand. So opening those fingers, relaxing your shoulders down, and then relaxing your hands. So that's one of my favorites. So if I'm sitting and doing telehealth sessions for a good portion of the day, like that is one of my go-tos in between sessions. All right. So there are a couple devices out on the market that can help with posture. So the first two, the Calibrace and Upright, are both marketed specifically for Parkinson's. The Calibrace is a type of brace, and the person who invented it, her mother had Parkinson's, and she had some fairly significant posture issues. And so that's where the inventor came up with this idea. And the second device is a vibratory, basically necklace. So that way, if you become more forward flexed, it gives you a signal. So, thinking about your spouse giving you that verbal reminder, oh, you need to stand up. This takes a little bit of that away from your spouse, and anytime you become more forward, it can give you a reminder to get standing tall. And then the third device, it's not marketed specifically for Parkinson's, but I do have to say I got this for my husband who had awful posture, and it has made a significant difference with his workplace posture. So this is a similar idea behind the upright, but instead of being in the front, it can be on your back, and it can either be worn as a necklace, or there's like a little adhesive that you can put on, and you put it on your mid back, and it can just give you that vibration reminder when you're starting to become more forward. So, there are definitely some things out on the market that can help you when your posture isn't that automatic response. If you loved the exercises I went over in January, I put together just a 4-week exercise progression. So it was a video once a week for the month of January. So all of that's available, so you could sign up at any time. And it was with the idea that quite a few people were reaching out, struggling with their posture. So if you signed up for it, it is about a 10, I think, to 15-minute video each week, going over a couple exercises that you can focus on. So that's always an option. All right, any questions?
Liz,
Yes.
okay, do the exercises help you with that perception of where you're standing? I mean, I know the wall would, but I'm intrigued by the theory that, I don't have a clear perception of what's straight, and I think that's a pretty good evaluation.
Mm-hmm. So the wall or a bed or the floor, for some people, can be really helpful feedback. A lot of times when it's a more complex postural, perceptual issue, we need to do more specific training, really fine-tuned to your needs. But definitely using the wall and doing posture check-ins can be really helpful, and also just getting that feedback from a mirror. So
Yeah, okay.
like thinking anytime you're going to the bathroom, like stand in front of the mirror and get that visual feedback of what your posture is, what upright is, because that a lot of times can be really helpful.
Okay. I'm not looking for an easy answer. I'm just looking to understand.
Yeah, so unless we did like a full assessment, because a lot of times there are quite a few layers.
Yeah.
And especially if you've been dealing with posture issues for a little while, I always think about it like an onion. There's not just one layer to the onion. We have a couple different layers to work through. And so this is a really great starting place. And that was a big goal of my of this presentation. Is my hope is you'll leave this knowing that posture isn't just a one size fits all. This is why I'm having posture issues. There's quite a few reasons why. And that in Parkinson's, one of the main reasons is that there's this shift from it being an automatic signaling from our brain to a much more conscious signaling. And so we need to build in conscious reminders then. Stand tall.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
This is very interesting, very good.
Thanks, Bernadette.
Yes, it is. One last question. I apologize. I just think of all these things. Has the general medical, the neurologists and the general practitioners, have they caught up with this, and have the insurance companies caught up with the idea that almost constant physical therapy should be covered in order for Parkinson's patients to, fully be able to, live the lives like, other people can get PT for balance issues or something for a long time, but Miller has actually been refused treatment after, I don't know, 20 weeks,
Yeah.
something like that. And then they say, well, you're as good as we can get you, or something like that. So I'm just wondering, I know there might be programs that are not like at a physical therapy place that you might, or a personal trainer.
Well, there's a dance class.
Yeah. Do you know if there's any inclination towards for insurance companies to cover multiple things?
So insurance, the main thing for insurance, and each insurance policy is different. And so this may be more geared towards Medicare and Medicare Advantage plans, is that it needs to be skill based.
Right.
So once someone gets to the point where they do not require the skill of a physical therapist, where it could be done by a personal trainer, or my big goal is a community exercise program run by people who are knowledgeable in Parkinson's. That's some of the coverage limitations. There is some coverage for maintenance therapy, but again, then it needs to be skilled. So the therapist really has to justify why their services couldn't be done by someone else. And Barbara, as much as I love everyone I'm working with, I'm not seeing people forever. So the model that I use is I typically will see people about every 6 months for an assessment. And the first time we're working together, we will work together for a while, really get the person moving well. And then I find them a community exercise program, and that's where they're doing, they're continuing that hard work that we did. And then they're circling back to me, much like when you go to see the dentist every 6 months, you'll come back to see me just to make sure that we're catching things before they become issues. And then we fine tune, and then you're back doing that really awesome community exercise program.
In all fairness, we were recommended by a neurologist to rock steady boxing. And then COVID hit, and it's just, we're not good with Zooms generally. So anyway, thank you very much. This was very informative.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Any other questions?
Liz, it's Joanne.
Hi, Joanne.
Hi. Just had a question about mobility. Like, I feel very confident that I can straighten up against the wall and do all the things that you've suggested. They're very helpful. This has been an excellent presentation too. But when when I walk, I get, 50 yards and I'm exhausted. My front thighs and just that whole, it's in my legs, not necessarily my back, I think. So that seems to be a real challenge.
And so, like, these are really great exercises to do as, touch points during the day. But the tricky part is they're just stationary. And so when we start to get moving, then we really add in doing two things at once and having split attention. And we have more, proprioceptive, so body awareness challenges. And so, and this is a bit challenging to, to provide general exercises because again, this is an onion. And so, doing some targeted exercise where you are really aware of your posture, but also doing a secondary activity. So that could be, walking around your home where you're really thinking about your posture, and then also carrying a cup of water where you're working on not spilling that water. That's an idea. And then the fatigue, I think, can play a role because, and I joke about this in class, is that I want everyone to have buns of steel. So in Parkinson's, so often you all are really great at figuring out ways to move without activating your glutes. Guys are awesome at it. And so one of my goals especially in our big class, is to get you to activate your glutes. And so, glute strengthening, really specific, can also be helpful because that will help extend your hips and help you stay upright. When you're more shifted forward, then it really does require more strength from, say, your quadricep muscles to keep your legs stable.
That's great. Thank you.
Any other questions? These are wonderful questions, everyone. Awesome. I got all the questions taken care of. Okay. All right, then just a couple things to wrap up. So I will be back to talk to the group on March 22nd. We'll be talking about balance and falls. And along with that, on March 30th, which is a Tuesday, I will be at the Empower Gym from 12 until 2. And I'll have a couple physical therapy students with me, and we will be doing some balance screens. So for anyone who came in the fall when we did it, there's a handful of assessments that we look at, and then we have a sheet that compares you to your age group, and then also taking a look at what is your risk for falls based on how you're doing. So it's I think a helpful assessment in terms of just screening for balance. So that's on March 30th. And then the other thing is myself and Amy DeBlois, who's at Upstate, we received a small grant to take a look at my exercise class on Zoom and the benefits of that, and then adding in a heart rate monitor. So that way we're able to see how hard people are working during my class. And so we have opened up recruitment for that. So if you wanted to, and I'm going to just come to my contact information, want to give me a call or shoot me an email if you are interested. We are starting that, and And then this is also a great way to get a hold of me if you have any questions or interested in therapy services that are really Parkinson's focused.
Liz,
Yes.
is there someplace we can go to print out the pictures of the exercises?
I believe Pat emailed you the PowerPoint. If not, I can pull this together and just make an easy PDF and send it.
Okay, great. Yeah, let me see if I got something from them, and I'll
Yeah.
either contact you.
You do not, Ralph. You know, it turns out, Liz, they were all single pages, and I could not figure out how to do multiple slides on a single page.
Oh, okay.
I need to circle back and see if we can do that. The exercise ones I will do on single page and have those in the gym.
Okay. I can put together a handout. That's easy.
Okay. Yes, if it's in a PDF, we can get it to them easily.
Okay.
I was just afraid they wouldn't be able to open it in Google, so I ended up not doing it.
Okay. Yep. No problem. I can put that together of the exercises. And then that 4-week exercise program also has videos. So if videos are easier, that may be a good option also. Okay, and then the last page is just references. There's quite a bit out there about posture and Parkinson's. I specifically just cited those 2 papers. So I felt like they really spoke to just how many layers there are to posture and that more forward flex posture that happens in Parkinson's. All right. Any other questions?
I'd just like to say thank you. It was excellent.
Oh, you're so welcome. So welcome. All right. Well, Pat, I'm going to stop sharing.
Okay. Yeah, you did do a great job, Liz. I'm always looking for more things to yell at people about so they can pretty much be assured that in the gym we'll pay much more attention. And, you know, our exercise program, we do address endurance just because of the length of the program, but not real specifically. But now we do have those bikes. So we will be starting the biking program, and that specifically addresses endurance at a relatively high level and lower extremity, the glutes, quads, gastrocs. So that should be beneficial also.